So hello and welcome to our final feedback video for this run of the course. I'm Sherelle and I'm really glad to be back in the studio this week with Richard, of course, and Craig is still travelling in the UK.
Hi, it's Craig here from Warwick University, and just had a long trip, 10 hours in buses and trains and planes to get back from Galway, where I've been for the last few days, working with Galway University and their medical faculty in particular to look at introducing mindfulness there into their curriculum.
This is always my favourite week of the course, Sherelle. Not because it's the end, but just because of, everything sort of tends to come together and the insights and the way everything's kind of connecting for our learners is really great.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so much gratitude gets expressed in this final week. I mean, right through the course, but particularly in this last week. It's lovely.
We've said it over the last few weeks, but there's so much, a sense of community. People really come together and they start to really support one another. It's not just a sharing of ideas anymore. No. It's really a supporting, and it's so nice, isn't it?
Definitely, definitely.
Even a little bit of sadness, perhaps, about the end of the course.
People feeling a little sad about it coming, and also sometimes some sadness that they wish they had learned about mindfulness earlier in their lives. But
better late than never, I suppose. It's one of those things that I guess we discovered at the right time for us, and perhaps it might have made things easier once. But
sure.
And of course, we've just planted a seed. This is something else as well. 6 weeks is a very short time, really, to learn mindfulness.
6 weeks is not enough to master mindfulness. I'm not sure that 6 years is, or even 6 decades, but definitely not 6 weeks to master it.
So we've really just planted a seed, and what's been nice to see is the way some of the learners, or a lot of the learners now, are starting to really apply this in their lives and practice this day to day, moment to moment. And some of the benefits that come out of that.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Yeah. And with the benefits, some people are really keen to start telling everyone they know that they should be practicing mindfulness, and shouldn't this be compulsory in schools and politics and business and all those things. And it would be lovely if it was, but...
Yes. and there are efforts underway. Craig's doing that right now, and
Definitely.
There's certainly a lot of stuff happening here in Australia, and particularly in Melbourne around that. Yeah.
But I always just try and caution people a little bit that because we might have found the course fantastic for us, but often there are some misconceptions a little bit around mindfulness, and sometimes people might be a little unsure about it, and if you start sort of pushing and almost preaching about it, you can almost put people off.
Very easily put people off, right?
Yeah. And I usually suggest to people, just try and show by your example. If you're just more centred and you're just managing situations better, then people might be a bit more inclined to say, hey, what is it that you've been doing again? Whereas just shouting it to the hilltops is not always the best way to go.
So being the change.
Be the change, definitely.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of highlights in the course
this
week. So the puppy analogy people were mentioning was one of the gems of the course for them. That was a really popular
Just being gentle with ourselves.
Sure.
Who knew?
Yeah.
I mean, better well-being, but also more productive as we become more able to focus on what's actually important.
Sure.
Very important.
And other gems of the course was about being kind to yourself, reducing default mode, really listening to others, reducing stress, learning that multitasking technically is a myth in terms of our attention.
That's a big one.
Yeah. The meditation exercises themselves were another real highlight for so many people, and quite a few commented on the Aussie accents that they really enjoyed as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And it's nice, isn't it, to realise how simple meditation is, how simple and practical, and I think this course does a beautiful job of demystifying that.
Sure. Simple, but not always easy to put into practice.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. And some of our learners really like the phrase, a constant process of waking up being the heart of mindfulness. And that's certainly, for me, that's the reason I do this work. I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about this, because yes, less stress, peak performance, better well-being, but this is also a tool for becoming more aware of what we're feeling and thinking and the effect of our actions on other people and on the planet. And that I think is really the heart of mindfulness and what's most exciting for me about it.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got a lot of tips in Step 6.2, there's the PDF there. If you missed it, please go back and have a look at that. We might even be able to attach it at the end of this video step. But lots of great tips about living a mindful life. It's not just about the meditation practice. It really is about living more mindfully.
Yeah.
There were a lot of very useful insights, and the insights we have on week 6 are very often quite different to the ones we have on week 1, because the process has got time to sort of really deepen itself, and people noticing acting with more discernment, and also how this can influence on ethics and our decision making. And the point here is not for us to pretend to tell people how to live or what to think, but just that people have more awareness over the decisions we make and the things that motivate that decisions are very important, and just to act with more awareness. Because very often if we're on automatic pilot, we may not always act in a way that perhaps later on we would have been happy with. And so if we're more aware on the moment, we can make those choices better. And it was great to read a lot of the examples of people doing exactly that.
And mindfulness and ethics. This is always a really interesting topic as well, because as we start to practice, we become more aware, as I said before, of what we're thinking and feeling, and the effect that we're having on everything around us. And that a lot of our learners sort of start to come up with, bump into this challenge. So can I kill mosquitoes? Do I kill a mosquito? I mean, and again, there are no rules with mindfulness. It's not about you must live in a particular way, or you should do this or you shouldn't do this, but it's about being aware.
Sure.
And one thing that I've certainly noticed on meditation retreats when my mind gets really quiet is if I go to kill a mosquito, I generate a lot of anger, and I can feel it's very uncomfortable. You know, to kill something, you have to generate some kind of anger. And when you start to really get that, it does start to just naturally change your behaviour. Having said that, if I were in a region with dengue fever or malaria, I'd be slapping away probably, you know. Because I don't think it's an act of compassion to let myself get malaria or let a mosquito give me malaria. That's not a particularly compassionate thing to do.
Sure.
So,
and I think, you know, we can use mosquito repellent, and we can use
repellent's
long
also
sleeves
good.
and
Bit of DEET.
fly screens as well.
And another question that comes up a lot is, do longer-term meditation practitioners always tend to become vegetarians? And I think that's a very interesting question. And again, I think it comes down to awareness.
Sure.
I mean, I was personally, when I started meditating, I pretty quickly became a vegetarian because it somehow just, I mean, maybe it was part of the identity of a meditator, but also it just somehow felt better ethically to do that. You know, once you become aware of particularly factory farming and that kind of thing, you naturally perhaps want to become a bit more ethical. And I became vegetarian. I was for 6 years. And then I started to notice that my body wasn't actually coping that well with not eating any meat at all. And so I started to eat a little bit of ethical meat. And I think if we do that with awareness and really listen to what our body needs and have an awareness of other beings, I think that can really guide our behaviour. So again, maybe no fixed rules.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's important to find what works for you. For me, I was vegetarian before my practice actually, and it's just it stayed right through since I was a teenager. But that works for me. I know, as you say, energy levels for some people, it doesn't always work. So you need to find what works for you.
Yeah. And formal practice, Sherelle.
Oh, yes. So this week we had a 20-minute practice. It's a big jump from the 5 and 10-minute practices we'd been doing earlier. And obviously, you know, for some people, there's just a bit more time for wandering and falling asleep and those things to sort of happen. But we did find, you know, a lot of people had some really important breakthroughs, and there were some physical effects that people have actually noticed, you know, reduced blood pressure. One fellow who has to measure his blood pressure very regularly for currently has medication is looking at reducing his medication for that.
And noticed his blood pressure fall while he was meditating?
Yeah.
Amazing.
And just regularly it's shifting down. Less pain has also been referred to, and even one learner with Tourette syndrome mentioned that he has fewer tics when he's meditating, and he's hoping that will translate to some fewer tics in other parts of his life as well. And again, Craig's got some important things to say about this topic.
Been some very interesting observations about physical health benefits, effects on blood pressure and metabolism, and all of these kinds of things, which are, of course, understandable and important side effects of practicing mindfulness. The body responds to exactly whatever the mind tells it to do, and if we're constantly stressed and agitated, then the body's on high alert. But it was very interesting to notice some of those effects were becoming much more deeply ingrained, and they were, of course, very natural but important side effects of practicing mindfulness. There are a number of meditation breakthroughs which was tremendous, and fantastic that people just patiently and gently persevered, not to give up too soon, and to actually give the process time to really sink in. And it was really good to read a number of readers saying, well, they got the sense that not failing because, you know, whatever expectation we had about how it should have gone, but it's not about failing at all. It's just about, you know, applying the process. And one of the really key breakthroughs is to unhook from the incessant internal dialogue about getting it right or not getting it right. And in some ways, one of the biggest differences between an expert mindfulness practitioner and somebody who's relatively new to it may not be that one has a wandering mind and the other doesn't, but perhaps one just stops criticizing it and judging it. and that makes the whole process a lot easier.
And Sherelle, the important thing to realise is that mindfulness isn't just about keeping our attention always in the present moment. It's about developing that awareness. So it's the practice is focusing our attention on one thing, noticing when it wanders off, and bringing it back, ideally without judgment or reaction. And that whole thing is, that whole process, that's the practice of mindfulness.
Sure. And it was nice that some learners were noticing that other people around them were noticing the effects of that, either when they were or they weren't
It's always a
doing
good
it.
sign, isn't it? Yeah.
So, a couple of examples. One person answered the phone after a meditation and the other person said, "Have you been meditating?" I can hear it in your voice. I really like that one. Some work colleagues have noticed that I talk less, listen more and appear less anxious, said another learner. And then on the flip side, one person wrote, "My daughter and I were having a discussion today, got a little heated, and she asked, 'When did you last meditate?'" And sadly, it was a couple of days ago, but long enough for her to make a difference. And it was just a nice reminder that although we're not doing this for other people, we're doing it for ourselves. There are ripple effects. And this particular learner said, that has really motivated her to keep up with her practice. If it makes a difference to one person, very important person in her life, her daughter, that gives her more motivation to get the formal practice happening more regularly.
Some learners were noticing what they described as a lack of progress, which is mostly related to a lack of practice, not practicing and applying it. And one of the really useful steps in developing mindfulness is to become aware of the things that get in the way of practicing it. The haste, the impatience, the self-sabotaging attitude, it's not going to work for me, I can't do it. All of these kinds of things, at least if we're getting more awareness about the things that stand in the way of practicing mindfulness, then that's a sign of progress in itself. So let's just take steps from where we feel comfortable and where we are, and just be patient to allow the process to mature over time, and not being impatient for results. And this is certainly one thing that came up from a lot of learners. Am I making progress? How am I going? How do I measure that progress? And of course, it's like putting a seed in the ground and letting it germinate and a plant, and digging up the little seedling all the time just to check its roots and see how it's going. And we don't need to do that. Let's just allow it to take time, and nature will work if we just give it the space to do that.
And Sherelle, it's an interesting point. How do we measure progress with mindfulness? I mean, of course, when we're thinking about progress in the future, we're not actually maybe even practicing mindfulness.
Sure.
But yeah, I think the real acid test, I mean, it's hard to tell, isn't it, from one moment to the next, one meditation to the next, and it's a non-linear thing. Some days are easy, some days are hard. But there are certain acid tests like driving in peak hour traffic, in heavy traffic. Are we less reactive?
Sure.
When we're communicating, are we listening? Are we really present with people, or are we still just sort of autopiloting, thinking about what we're going to say? These are ways of, I think, starting to notice the progress that comes with consistent mindfulness practice. And some of our learners have started to notice that happening.
Definitely. And often, it's those subtle effects, and it just accrues over time. You might just notice, actually, I'm just managing the situation better, or I'm just feeling a little bit more content. And I also wonder a little bit too about, do we really need to measure the effects? I personally like to think of my practice more as just checking in, and I don't have to particularly get anywhere. I'm just noticing what's happening today, and next time I practice, it'll be different, and that's what I do.
Exactly. And it's interesting as well. At least one of our learners this week said that they sort of experienced a perceived lack of progress, no major breakthrough. And I guess that, sometimes people are sharing stuff on the forums and it's like, wow, light bulb moments, big shifts, and that's great. But also it's not necessary, And sometimes I think when we just practice consistently, we might not even realise how much is changing for us, and we might not even realise how profoundly things are affecting us.
Yeah.
And actually, often I find any time I teach a course, it's the people who are sitting there and, I can't necessarily articulate what's happening. They're often the people who are really getting it, because they're sitting in that place of not knowing, that place of presence where the mind hasn't seized upon something and created a story around it. And that's actually a really good place to be sitting in. So for any of our learners that are still like, I'm not sure what's going on here, it's probably actually a sign of progress in some ways.
I think it can be, because if you're aware of what's happening, you're aware that perhaps things aren't shifting at the rate you'd like to.
Yes.
That's awareness. That's awareness right there.
And of course, there are challenges around establishing routines, and that's part of the process. I mean, we're doing one big experiment here, trying to find the times and the places and the things that support us, and noticing the obstacles and slowly overcoming them. And if we can bring that non-judgmental awareness to what gets in the way, as well as noticing the benefits of meditating, I think that's really a very useful thing to do.
Definitely. And we talked a lot in step 6.4 about setting up, regular practices. I gave quite a lengthy list of tips that I know a lot of learners enjoyed.
Yes.
But a lot of learners were sharing their own tips as well, really aiming to bookend the day with formal practice at the beginning and the end of the day. One learner writing about putting post-it notes, someone else saying, a few gold stars around the house just to remind them.
Yeah, put it in
Breathe
the
a little bit more
calendar,
deeply
set
when
an
you
alarm
see
on
it.
the phone.
And then, of course, the recommended resources. Some people are already reading the books and the watching the videos and joining a local meditation group, which I think is fantastic. I just want to remind people, though, that sometimes stocking up on a whole lot of information and books, it's actually the benefits come from doing the practice, not reading about the practice. So we really want you to look at the recommended resources. But take your time. Don't feel that you've got to just accumulate all that knowledge in there.
Perhaps seeing them as a support and as a motivation to practice, but remembering that the practice is the most important thing.
Sure. And we know a lot of learners have found repeating the course has been helpful. Either within the current course, they just go back at the end of week 6 and review those main lessons.
Yes.
And for some people it is about re-enrolling in a future course. Certainly not expected, but we do know a lot of people are
I
finding
think
that
some people
helpful.
have done the course every time it's run.
We do have a few that have done it 6
times.
times.
And it's beautiful because they're going deeper and deeper and the way they support the other learners and the insights that they give, it's really great.
And we really weren't expecting that. We really thought this was an introductory course and people would go and do it, and we're just loving the community that's coming from these repeat learners. It's really added something special to the course.
And we'd just like to remind learners as well that the materials remain available for 8 weeks after you join the course, or indefinitely if you choose to upgrade. And of course you can save anything as well, the articles, the audios, the videos, just sort of right-click them and save them for later.
Sure, and with the feedback videos, those themselves you can access via our Mindfulness project YouTube channel as well. You can access those at any time possible.
And look, if anyone's confused about how long you have access to, just see the Your Course page, and that'll give you everything you need
that'll
to know.
show you exactly when your current expiry runs out on the course. And after so many requests for a follow-up mindfulness course, I'm really pleased to announce that we will be offering a follow-up program in November. But first of all, we'll be having a recap of this program, a slightly refreshed version with a new structure, starting in October. So that will be Mindfulness for Wellbeing and Peak Performance. And then in November, we'll be having a new course called Maintaining a Mindful Life. And that'll be building a little bit on some of the materials we have here. And
they can be done independently, but also as sort of 2 parts, really.
Yes, so you can technically do 8 weeks of mindfulness training over a 10-week period in October, November, which I think will be really fabulous for many of our learners. Also, that want to repeat the course. But even if you don't want to repeat the course, maybe there's someone that you'd like to recommend it to. So registrations for those courses will be opening soon. You can currently register your interest, though, and you'll get an email about more details when they're ready.
Yeah. So thanks to Craig.
So it's a goodbye from me, and of course there'll be a goodbye from the team as well, and all the people behind the scenes who do such a fantastic job. And of course this 6-week program is not the end of mindfulness. It's a step in a path which I hope is a lifelong step. And so very much encourage you to continue with the practice and to continue to be more mindful, to grow in our understanding of ourselves and our connection with the world around us. So good luck with that practice, and we hope to cross paths with you again in the future.
And thanks to all of our learners. We've had 17,500 learners this time around with over 33,000 comments. Man, you've been busy, right?
We have been very busy, and that was as of Thursday. So there's still been more coming in today and this weekend, I'm sure.
So thank you for all your sharing, for being willing to do the exercises and to really explore mindfulness. And as we've said, this is just the beginning, so keep going with the practice.
Yeah. And of course, I'd like to thank my fellow mentor, Adrian, and all the
and
team
you,
that worked
Sherelle.
behind the scenes. And of course
Thank
to
you.
Craig and Richard. It's been great. And we wish you all the best for a mindful life.
Yeah.